Let's bring in Grant Packard, a professor of marketing at York University's Schulich School of Business. And Grant, over the last few weeks, there's been a tremendous surge of national pride, and that includes this campaign to buy Canadian. You study marketing. Have we ever seen anything like this in Canada before?
Not that I'm aware of. This is really unprecedented, and it's an extraordinary moment in our history. So it makes sense that we're having such a dramatic impact on how everybody's thinking as a citizen and as a consumer.
I want to play you an Instagram reel from Rick Silver. He's been posting a lot about buying Canadian, and here's one from today.
I'm trying to figure out why this grocer didn't label the Old Dutch as Canadian. They're definitely a Canadian-owned and operated brand. All the Frito-Lay chips get the Canadian treatment. I mean, Frito-Lay kind of owns the oil. And maybe they are made in Canada, but ultimately, this is a U.S. company. The profits go to America. So you got to look a little harder.
We reached out to Rick, and he has a question for you.
Like all good Canadians, I'm trying my best to buy Canadian at the grocery store. But made in Canada, prepared in Canada, I know just looking for a maple leaf probably isn't good enough. So my question is, how do I best identify Canadian products made by Canadian companies?
And so, Grant, the answer?
Well, Canadian products is relatively easy. We have laws that are in place from the Competition Bureau that businesses have to follow, and they're pretty steep fines if they don't. That guest mentioned that the maple leaf alone actually has meaning. It has to follow the Made in Canada standard, which some proportion of the product has to be prepared, made, packaged in Canada. It's a lot harder to figure out company ownership. And so I think it may generally be easier to think about the products themselves and a bit less about the brands.
Made in Canada has a requirement of how Canadian it is. What is that requirement?
So it differs for food and non-food products. So for non-food products, at least 51% needs to be Canadian designed, manufactured, assembled, the costs that go into it. For food products, it really has to be any non-zero proportion, but the last step in the process. So if I'm making a pizza, the cheese and the dough and the tomato sauce can come from anywhere, but I have to actually make it look like a pizza and package it here in Canada.
Here's the tricky thing, though. We're seeing an increasing number of products with proudly Canadian on it. And as I understand it, that does not come with a specific meaning.
No, so actually Ad Standards Canada, another organization, is just trying to work out what that means. So it tends to be used by brands that either they're Canadian businesses or they're a Canadian brand. But to give you an example, Dempster's has used the maple leaf in their logo for the last several years, but they are actually a subsidiary of a foreign company. So proudly Canadian, it's not quite clear how businesses can use that yet, and it's not quite as set in stone. But most brands that say proudly Canadian are using a maple leaf, and so they're going to have to somewhere on that packaging explain what part of the product, what it is they mean when they say proudly Canadian.
We have another question. This one is from Alexia in Toronto.
When it comes to food, we know which brands are Canadian. And my question is, when it comes to makeup, products, or even shoes, we want to know which ones are Canadian as well.
All right, and let me add to that, electronics and appliances. What guidance do you have for people who in areas like that want to buy Canadian or at least avoid American brands?
Sure. It's really difficult. There aren't a lot of Canadian fashion brands. And when we do have them, most of them design their products here, like shoes or apparel, but they're often manufactured overseas. And there are very few. Canada Goose is probably one of the only ones that do everything here in Canada. What I would suggest is there are these great Canadian-made websites and apps. There are 5 or 6 apps now that you can use that are crowdsourced. They use AI to develop lists of all kinds of products that give you information from a huge range of categories. To the extent, can they be called a product of Canada, which is essentially almost 100%, or only a made in Canada product, or even just prepared, or nothing at all. And that's madeinca.ca is one of those. Shop Canadian or Buy Beaver or apps that are free or low price that are really useful for that kind of thing.
Great advice. More questions, I hope, on another evening for you. Grant Packard, thank you very much.
My pleasure.